There are two holy grails of storytelling, and in my Attack on Titan breakdown I have already showed you what the first one is and how Isayama managed to attain it. So the time has come to unravel the second one, and probably to the surprise of, well, most people, it comes with Halo. So stay tuned as I show you how Halo, or rather old Bungie and Eric Nyland, managed to attain this elusive treasure. For the most part, by accident. I will also show you what must be done to achieve it yourself, and if you succeed in doing so, you will share the stage with the likes of Homer, Shakespeare, H.P. Lovecraft, Tolkien, and John Woo. It's a small but extraordinary club. I will also showcase why no one in Hollywood knows what to do with Halo, because it goes against the current Hollywood zeitgeist. Also how and why the Paramount show wears Halo like a Buffalo Bill skin suit. And to top it all off, we'll be screenwriting Halo, writing the one-page elevator pitch for a Halo movie with all the elements necessary for telling the real story of Halo. So subscribe and hit the like, it helps to get the word out, and the machine, it enjoys it like Hollywood producers enjoy their booger sugar. So let's not waste any time and jump into Wrong Answers Only, the 40-year-old virgin.
This is UNS
in space! I'm gonna say something very controversial here.
Dial 911. Tell the police to get up here quick. Somebody's about to get killed.
But why? Why is it so hard to make a Halo movie, for example? It all has to do with the second holy grail of storytelling, and it's when you invent your own genre. And this is why Halo adaptations range from palatable to absolute disasters, because no one has ever distilled what this Halo genre actually is. And this is also why lore alone is not enough. Lore does not account for this genre, but every element inside Bungie-era Halo games is molded by and through this genre. From the music, to the floatiness or dance of the combat, to even the in-game level design and architecture. All are part of this unique new genre. This genre is also responsible for why we never got a proper Halo movie. Nobody understood that Halo exists within its own genre, so everyone felt entitled in making Halo, thinking they'd understand it. It's just some sci-fi / aliens knockoff, right?
Wrong.
Both Microsoft and Paramount have no clue what Halo is, and I'll show you why. Don't worry, we'll get to Neil Blomkamp as well. For those wondering why it's so important to define this genre, well, you can't really write a screenplay without a genre. Genre is the first thing you make a decision on. Before you write your logline, your synopsis or any possible character sheets, let alone beat sheets or the actual script, you pick your genre. Even if your goal is to subvert, diffuse, blend, mix or elevate a genre, you must understand the rules before you know how to break them. So before we understand Halo, we must understand Bungie and what they did. And to understand what they did, we must learn one crucial lesson. Genre is one of those things where you can ask 10 people what it is and you'll get 10 different answers. And it gets even more confusing when dealing with video game genres. They make as much sense as Rule 34 tags. I mean, what is the difference between massive and gigantic? And there is no ontological difference between gazangas and bazangas. Going back to Carl Gustav Grünfeld and his scientific inquiry into boobage. The rise of industrialization dovetailed with terms like jugs and milk factory. Massive jiggle twins. Anyway, I simply prefer the term milk truck. Alright, with that out of the way, we can finally talk about film genres. My favorite way to think of genre comes from Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. Save the Cat is very formulaic and I only recommend the book to newcomers. It's good for when you just start out, but it becomes very restrictive when you want to experiment or go beyond the formula. What's great about the book is Snyder's hyper sense for pattern recognition. The man could watch any 100 movies at random and distill them all down to one unifying pattern. And he did the same with genre, which helps us get insight into what genre is. The term itself goes back to the Latin genus, which just means kind. That's all genre is, a kind. kinds of what? Well, that's where Snyder comes in, because the most commonly understood genres are actually just marketing terms. Action, horror, sci-fi, fantasy, and romance, for example, are just marketing terms, there to attract new potential customers. They do not tell us enough about storytelling genres. It's like the difference between early tech adopters versus being an engineer. One is an end-user experience and the other, well, built the end-user experience. And so we must understand genre in relation to screenwriting. And Blake Snyder distilled all movies down to 10 story types. According to Snyder, genres have to tell you what a story is. His categorization looks at what different stories have in common. For example, Jaws, Alien, Panic Room, and The Exorcist are the same genre, which at first raises an eyebrow until you hear the name Snyder picked for it: Monster in the House. Star Wars, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Back to the Future, and most heist movies fall under Golden Fleece. Bruce Almighty, Liar Liar, and Flubber fall into Out of the Bottle. Rites of Passage and Body Love are fairly self-explanatory. Romance films fall under Body Love as well. Interestingly enough, Chinatown and JFK are not whodunit, but why done it. The why is always more interesting than the who. Again, this all relates back to the screenwriter, not the audience. Forrest Gump, Naruto, and Amadeus are the full triumphant. The Godfather, MASH, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest are all institutionalized. Here, institution means anything that functions as, well, an institution, be it a mental hospital or a crime family. Superhero is self-explanatory as well. And finally, we get to my personal favorite, where Die Hard, Titanic, and Schindler's List share supposedly the same genre. It sounds crazy until you hear the name: Dude or Dudette with a problem. These are Snyder's 10 storytelling types, and you might already see where we are going with this. Genres are narrative sophistications of primal and/or civilizational elements. You can take a caveman from 100,000 years ago, put him in front of Alien, and he'll get what's going on. It's a monster in the house, or rather cave. Same goes for rites of passage. Every society has them, or it will suffer the consequences of a prolonged adolescence.
We're leaving.
In similar fashion, Golden Fleece is the primal quest for an elixir, the MacGuffin to heal the lands. Only the hero finds himself during the journey. There is also no limit to how many genres exist out there. H.P. Lovecraft's cosmic horror captured what is basically the existential dread that sets in if there is no elixir, if you can't escape your own insignificance. John Woo distilled righteous vengeance and sacrifice into heroic bloodshed. Even societies have genres. Look at the contrast between dignity cultures and honor cultures, and the excesses of both. So the obvious question now is, wouldn't Halo just fit neatly into one of these genres? Halo plotlines would, not Halo as a whole. I mean, the Fall of Reach novel alone would fit into Golden Fleece, Rites of Passage, Body Love, Institutionalized, and Superhero. That's the advantage of a novel, you can dig much deeper compared to a 2-hour-long movie. And elements of the Bungie games fit perfectly into the full triumphant as well. I mean, you have to be a fool to undertake this.
Sir, permission to leave the station.
For what purpose, Master Chief?
To give the Covenant back their bomb.
Permission granted.
And succeed. But Halo in its entirety does not fit into any single genre that Snyder laid out. Remember what we are trying to do: adapt Halo, the video game franchise, not the book franchise. And one element that only video games have is gameplay. Only when we account for Halo's totality, including the gameplay, will we see this genre. It took me quite some time to distill it into a name, but here we go. Halo is a paleo-cosmic epic. It sits opposite from cosmic horror. Interestingly enough, I think there is a second franchise that exists within this genre. Of course, there could be a few more that I'm oblivious to. I will also highlight another game that managed to create its own genre as well. Because of gameplay, games are uniquely positioned to craft narrative sophistications. But for us to understand the paleo-cosmic epic, we first must understand the people responsible for it. I will only go into Bungie's history as it relates to pre- and peri-Halo. Post-Halo Bungie is just a shadow of its former self. Not commercially, of course, but creatively. The studio went from a wholesome motto to pure corporate gobbledygook to sell more live service crap with a pinch of casual racism. The original Bungie was something to behold. The best way to describe it is lightning in a bottle. So many elements had to coalesce in the right place at the right time, it might rekindle Richard Dawkins's belief in God. Because it is the same as if a tornado swept through a junkyard and assembled a Boeing 747. The Boeing in question is Halo Combat Evolved. And the junkyard is Bungie with its ethos or work culture. You see, Bungie was what every creative collective high on its own farts tries to be. A truly free space to explore creativity. I'm not gonna call it a safe space because stupid, bad or useless ideas were immediately discarded, and the whole thing was playfully confrontational.
Working with Marty is an effort in patience and restraint.
He's hilarious, he's funny, he's sharp.
He gets to bitch like nobody's business about how much work he has and how little time there is.
We work together really well.
The two of us together are the most unlikely couple for a variety of reasons.
I hate him, actually.
It wasn't about living some supposed true self, it was about finding the best ideas. Founded by Jason Jones and Alex Seropian in 1991, Bungie had the perfect balance of corporate and passion.
I was working on a game, and Alex was trying to start a company.
They attracted absolute geniuses on both the engineering and creative front, from Chris Butcher, lead engineer who began his first math and computer science degree at 10. Bear in mind, I'm not talking high school here, but a college bachelor's degree. To Jamie Grisma, a philosophy student who went into game design instead of astrophysics as initially planned. To the absolute unit that is Martin O'Donnell. This man could recompose fractured reality with a piano.
I count 2 Scarab. Repeat, 2 Scarab.
Bungie had a through line, a leitmotif if you will. The game is the story. Most Halo fans are aware of Bungie's 30 seconds of fun designing principle. But way before that, right at Bungie's founding, Jason Jones was convinced that games need a story. This was very unusual at the time as the FPS genre was invented by what kids these days call boomer shooters. And the people behind boomer shooters thought story is something irrelevant for games, which of course is nonsense because no one cares about tech demos. Most people need at least the simplest baseline of a story to play the game. People confuse the fact that some video games can skate by with a story skeleton with irrelevance. Even Super Mario has the most basic story ever told. Boy meets girl, boy wants girl, boy can't get girl, cue the drama or level. To complete this analogy we started, who or what is the tornado assembling the Boeing? Well, Myth 2 was shipped with a bug that in the worst case would delete most of your hard drive when uninstalling the game. Jason Jones had this thing called, oh god, what was it again? Hold on. Let me check. You don't hear it often when talking about gaming CEOs. Right, I got it. It's, Integrity, right. Jason Jones had integrity, and so they recalled 200,000 copies of the game. This move ended up costing Bungie $800,000. Bungie's finances were precarious during Halo's development, hence why acquisition was on the table. And once they got in contact with Microsoft Game Studios, well, Microsoft sent one of their demon people to seal the deal. Bungie now had to turn Halo from a collection of loose gameplay and story elements into a finished product for a new console. And this is where everything snapped into place. Creativity without deadlines is like a plant without water. It might survive for a while, but throw in a little deadline, and that's where the magic happens. I know this from my own experience when it comes to screenwriting. Eric Nyland was working with a tight deadline too. He only had 7 weeks to write Fall of Reach. This means that the template for most of the Halo lore was also written in this short period of time. But some of the key elements that make this Halo genre can be found in Bungie's first games, going back to Marathon. Unfortunately, Jason Jones is more elusive than the elusive man, so I can't give you an explanation as to why these elements are there, just that they make up the core of what Halo is. My first Bungie game was Oni, which I loved as well, but once I played Halo for the first time, it was like I was put under a spell. And this spell is still lasting. It took me years to figure out what Halo's story is. Kids these days do not know how big Halo was. By the time Halo 3 rolled around, it was a global cultural event. I grew up in Austria, and let me tell you, I cared more about the Halo release date than any other event throughout the year. I remember arguing with one of my teachers why I can't get the day off for Halo 3. He just looked at me like I was speaking some foreign language. As if I was the fool for asking.
Get out of my goddamn classroom before I break my foot off in your ass, insubordinate!
Anyway, I'm going to account for all the games, including Halo 5, and some of the novels. This includes the original series, the Forerunner trilogy, the Kilo 5 trilogy, and individual books like Contact Harvest, to name a few. I have read everything released by 2015 and before. Halo 5 soured my taste a little, so I dropped off, but Paramount's butchering of Halo reinvigorated me with a newfound hatred for this damn show. If they knew what they were doing, I wouldn't need to produce this video. Halo's Paleocosmic Epic has 4 elements. Bear in mind other franchises have some of these elements too, either identical or as a variation. I'll explain each and every difference. The 4 elements are technomysticism, hyper-agency, accelerated extinctionism and survivalism, and the use of 2-dimensional characters, in particular as a through line. Technomysticism is just a synonym for Arthur C. Clarke's famous quote, "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic." If I were to use an analogy for how Halo's environments feel, imagine being a medieval peasant, and now you get a chance to step inside a recently finished cathedral that took half a millennium to construct. The people who drafted the plans are long dead, so is everyone who set the first stone. And now you're inside the cathedral. You have never left your village before, and the tallest building you have ever seen is a horse stable. The same feeling this peasant experiences is invoked by Halo's environments. Every player felt the same, like this peasant. This technomysticism does not just relate to the Covenant and their religion or the various names and themes in Halo. It also relates to its absolute bonkers timeline. Halo's story starts at 10 million BCE. Right, before Christ era. 10 million years have to be accounted for when writing Halo. It's almost the average age of a member of Congress. Star Wars, for example, technically has, well, just mysticism. The Force would still exist in the galaxy even if there was no technology. But in Halo, the mysticism is induced by technology. The second element, hyper-agency, is very unique to Bungie. Hyper-agency relates to all the artificial intelligence constructs in Halo. They act as hyper-agents. The easiest way to explain hyper-agents is through the idea of ancient gods. Think of Ares as a hyper-agent. He acts through every warrior, or rather his essence does, by cycling into a positive feedback loop that already exists within every human. Demons, angels, or jinns are just a variation of an hyper-agent. And as a side note, this is where I think large language models are heading. You know those stories where someone's romantic chatbot goes rogue? That happens because the model is a probability algorithm, and it has a language map of every possibility related to romance. And romance can also go very wrong. So there is nothing that says we can't isolate the language map of war and talk to Ares. Sauron, for example, is a hyper-agent too. He uses everyone's greed and lust for power to manifest himself. And AI constructs in Halo do not just act as hyper-agents, they are also created from an essence. They are essentially a spirit in a techno shell. Forerunners created 343 Guilty Spark by digitizing the essence of an ancient human and tasked him with maintaining Installation 04. You know, the very Halo ring we blow up in Halo Combat Evolved. Later, Guilty Spark acts as a religious hyper-agent through the Covenant. The humans create AIs through similar means. They dissolve Adonna's brain into a connectome, which will come back to life in a digital framework. And throughout every game, Cortana was the player's hyper-agent. You do not take a single action in the games without Cortana's influence.
Could we possibly make any more noise? I guess so.
Even when separated like in Halo 3, your mission is to reunite with Cortana. And to give you a quick contrast, remember the Star Trek computer?
Computer. 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 Computer.
Computer.
Computer.
Computer.
Computer.
Computer. Computer. Computer.
Here the machine is just a tool. The humans in Star Trek are perfectly capable of exploring the galaxy without the computer. Not in Halo. Large vessels like the Pillar of Autumn can at best be guided into a controlled crash without AI help. If you wanted to have a Star Trek type show in Halo, where humans venture out into the final frontier with a mission of discovery, it can only be Halo if those same humans are guided by a spirit of truth and discovery in AI form. That's the difference. In other words, Halo is re-enchanted sci-fi. We had LSD-induced enchanted sci-fi in the 60s and 70s. Star Wars with its mysticism is a remnant of that. Later sci-fi became more grounded, more science, less mystique. Less soul, if you will. Every now and then we get a re-enchanted sci-fi story. Arguably the Matrix trilogy is one. Neo looked like a priest for a reason, and outside the Matrix he looked like a mendicant. Mendicant. Where did I? Right. Mendicant Bias, the Forerunner AI tasked with protecting their homeworld. He was characterized by his creator as a beggar after knowledge, a virtue that would later turn into a vice, opening the gates for the cosmic horror that is the Flood. This is also why the entire plot of Halo 5 was such a mess and made no sense. Rampancy is not the same as an AI uprising, because it was written by people who do not understand Halo, like the Paramount show. Don't worry, we'll get to it soon enough. Next is accelerated extinctionism and survivalism. This is where our paleo in Paleo Cosmic Epic comes in. The paleo is twofold. It's not just referencing all the really ancient constructs in Halo and how they are still playing a crucial role in the present. The paleo refers to the state, nature, and environment of humanity. Besides the 10 million year timeline, there is another number that needs to be kept in mind when writing Halo.
42.
No, but we're getting close. It's 23. Oh, I forgot a few numbers. 23 billion. That's the human death toll of the Human Covenant War. Have you ever wondered why there is no propaganda in the Halo games? Like something you'd see in Starship Troopers. Let's set aside for a moment that one is a deliberate satire. And yes, I know of the militarization propaganda during the interplanetary wars pre-Covenant, and also post-Covenant as laid out in the Kilo 5 trilogy. I'm targeting the games only as we try to adapt those, even though these two have been compared a few times. So why is there no propaganda? Because 23 billion people are dying. You don't need propaganda. Even the last vestige of the insurrectionists cannot really garner support by blaming the war on the UNSC. Everybody is noticing that 23 billion people are getting wiped out when human settled systems have only 39 billion people spread across them. Space in Halo mimics the parameters of prehistoric man. Look, I know it sounds crazy. That's why I've enlisted the UNSC AI Heartman to give us a quick rundown through the life of prehistoric man.
Listen up, you chirping meatbags. I'm here to guide you through a journey before your cushy, air-conditioned lives. If you think Asian man is a hard difficulty, try the prehistoric man setting. Ever ponder why your kind has spread across the planet like crabs in a 1960s commune? Hunger, my friends. For millions of years, your ancestors roamed the earth on the eternal quest for grub and a decent roof over their heads. Meanwhile, every predator, critter, plant, or gust of wind could have been your demise. Nature wasn't handing out participation trophies, my friends. It was a ruthless survival game. And humanity was just trying not to get wiped out like a speck of dust. And if that wasn't enough, your fellow sapien would bash in your noggin for access to a puddle of water. But hold on to your space helmets, because here comes the game changer, fire. When your genius ancestors discovered that sparky thing, they didn't just light up the night, they kindled the flame of human survival. Suddenly, they weren't just prey. They were the apex predators, toasting meat on top of the food chain. Yet, Don't get too comfy. Mother Nature wasn't ready to retire as the ultimate boss. Humanity's numbers dwindled down to a mere handful. Less than 10,000 resilient souls who faced extinction. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. It was a gritty battle, and only the toughest made it through. So, next time you complain about your Wi-Fi being slow, remember, your ancient kin had bigger concerns, like not becoming fertilizer. Dismissed.
This is why it's different from an extinction event. Humanity in Halo can survive extinction events. If one planet is hit by an asteroid, that's not going to wipe out all humans in the galaxy. But the extinctionism mimics events like the Toba eruption theory, where human numbers dwindle down to between 3,000 and 10,000 surviving individuals. The story of Halo mimics this framework in an accelerated fashion on a cosmic scale. Granted, the firing of the Halo rings is the only real extinction event that can wipe out all biomatter in the galaxy, but most people are familiar with this one plot point and less so with the extinctionism aspect, which honestly was perceived by some people as jingoistic, mostly because of a very superficial reading surrounding the Marines and Johnson in particular. But it's not jingoism, it's being the underdog. Humanity's role in Halo was always that of an underdog. From the ancient humans and their fate to the modern humans fighting against the Covenant and the Flood, humanity is the cosmic underdog. That's a key feature of Halo. And there is a simple reason for why Marines crack jokes or why Johnson makes up ridiculous comparisons.
When I joined the Corps, we didn't have any fancy schmancy tanks. We had sticks, 2 sticks and a rock for a whole platoon, and we had to share the rock.
They are all facing extinction, and the human mind has a choice. Go down in despair or fight with hope. That was the point of the games. And look, I am aware of the UNSC shenanigans in the lore, but remember what we're trying to do. Adapt the video game franchise with the Master Chief. And this is where Hollywood starts to struggle, on 2 fronts. Humanity as an underdog and what to do with the Master Chief. You see, Halo is everything Avatar isn't, and Avatar is the product of the current Hollywood zeitgeist. Having lived and worked with writers in LA for 2 years, I'd summarize it with one simple but consequential sentence.
Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. You are a plague.
Avatar is born from this very thinking. It views humanity as a virus. Halo views humanity as a savior, as the reclaimers, the underdog here to save the galaxy.
Social credit deducted.
And look, the irony is not lost on me that the man who influenced Halo's aesthetics would end up making the most anti-Halo film imaginable. Life can be funny, I guess. This interplay of all the elements is what makes Halo. Humanity does not survive by being in touch with nature. Last time we did, we almost got wiped out. We survive through human ingenuity, be it persistence hunting with bow and arrow or civilization and industry. And it's always guided by some spirit, Christian or not. And the same dynamic, or rather symbiosis, is exemplified by the Master Chief and Cortana. As I said before, it happened by accident. Bungie needed a guidepost for how and where to send the player.
There's no time. Get out of here, find keys, stop him. Before it's too late!
But they inadvertently replicated the exact dynamic mankind has with technology. Just as a quick contrast, it's not the same as transhumanism. It's a symbiotic relationship, not a merger. And this symbiosis is what saves humanity multiple times in the games. It even makes for the best moments in weaker Halo games like Halo 4.
I am ordering you
to surrender that AI!
No, sir.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with the Space Virgin and his spirit of foot fetishism. They have a proven track record. In the Fall of Reach novel, it's established just how outgunned humanity is. Every space battle is at best a Pyrrhic victory. The UNSC only wins by sacrificing countless vessels to corner the Covenant fleet, and any ground game is immediately offset by the Covenant retreating and glassing the planet from orbit. This is why the UNSC Infinity becomes the very symbol of humanity's survivalism. It tells the whole galaxy that you do not mess with the underdog. And the Flood, well, They're my favorite part for a reason. The Flood in Halo is the most biblical cosmic horror I've ever seen. It's truly aptly named because the Flood only wins by utilizing its enemies' hubris and shortcomings. Halo 2 literally spells it out for us.
I am a monument to all your sins.
And this is why I think that Warhammer 40k shares this genre with Halo. I do not know enough to confirm this, but judging by what I have seen and what I know about the lore, I'd say yes. But let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. Oh, and the other game that invented its own genre? Minecraft. There is a reason Notch is a billionaire who spends most of his free time insulting people on Twitter. I mean X, don't say Twitter 3 times or Elon appears behind you. Minecraft scratches that reptilian part of every boy. It's the part responsible for setting civilizational foundations. Minecraft is an accelerated play on the years between 13,000 BCE and 10,000 BCE. Now why is all this so important? Why do we need to define a genre to write a Halo movie? Because that's the process of adaptation. We want to adapt the gameplay element, the lore element and the prose element of Halo into a visual medium. That's why we're doing this, because it's going to tell us what to put in the screenplay and what to omit. This is why the Landfall short is such a fan favorite. Neil Blomkamp instinctively understood how to portray some of these elements because he played the damn games. This is not jingoism, this is humanity's only chance at survival. Remember, 23 billion people are dying, so of course the war machine goes into high gear. And with this almost rhythmic, beating way it's filmed, Neil managed to capture the essence of some Halo elements. Every fan immediately recognized them. I truly believe we would have gotten the right Halo film from Neil Blomkamp. Well, as long as he doesn't write it. This man is a great director but a horrendous writer. And the first mistake Paramount did was to turn this Halo epic into a TV show. You do not stretch an epic into 17 episodes. Game of Thrones has epic elements, but it's not an epic, it's a grounded and dirty fantasy drama. Most of us tuned in to see who's next on the chopping block. And with that we can take on the last and most important element of Halo and the Paleo Cosmic Epic. You cannot make Halo without getting this one right, and it's what Paramount butchered the most. The Master Chief is the easiest and at the same time the most difficult element to get right when adapting Halo. Easy when you know what you're doing, and very difficult when you don't, like the people who came up with Jimmy Rings. Hey look, I'm not missing out on any opportunity to crap over Jimmy. The video game industry always struggled with narrative, in parts because of the way development cycles work. The narrative is usually just slapped onto the game instead of building it ground up with the game and the gameplay. And one thing the industry never understood is the silent protagonist or the player avatar. They don't understand what both actually are, because the Master Chief is the same as the Doomslayer, or James Bond, or One Punch Man, or even the gang from It's Always Sunny. It's a basic character type that I broke down in my video The Storytelling of Doom and how to improve it. And while that video was related to video games, the lesson is the same when adapting a video game for the screen. So let's take a quick look at what I said. There are only two basic types of character and people tend to confuse the two all the time. These two are also mutually exclusive, and it's the two-dimensional and three-dimensional characters. Most people conflate a poorly written three-dimensional character with a two-dimensional character. They are not the same thing. What makes a three-dimensional character is their internal flaw. It is the reason the hero went on a journey to begin with. Another way to think of three-dimensional characters is that they have a character spine. A three-dimensional character has a need and a want, but only when they overcome their need will they get their want. So internal change is at the core of a three-dimensional character. Now, they don't have to change. Michael Corleone doesn't change. He keeps his flaw at the end of The Godfather and becomes the devil. Conversely, the two-dimensional character lacks a flaw and their spine is underdeveloped, but they still act as a catalyst for change. The difference is that the change is external. This is why One Punch Man and the gang from It's Always Sunny are the same thing. One Punch Man broke his limiter. He exists outside the hero's journey and in the infinite. That's the joke.
Not again. All it took was one punch.
Damn it!
so everyone around him goes through the hero's journey instead. In similar fashion, the gang's narcissism and self-absorption is a bottomless pit. They can't go anywhere else but lower. So everyone around them changes instead too. This is precisely why two-dimensional characters make great vehicles for primordial archetypes. Your noir detectives, your man's man, your psychopaths, your ultimate warriors, your killer robots, and for that matter, any killer in a slasher film. A constant does not change, but a constant will necessitate change around it. That's why you can build a dramatic arc with two-dimensional characters. And the Master Chief is just a two-dimensional character. And what the writers of the Paramount show tried to do is turn him into a classic three-dimensional character by giving him a cheap, knockoff RoboCop arc of self-discovery. They turned the culmination of human ingenuity and evolution into a teenager with mommy issues. Of all the things they could have done, this was the stupidest. I mean, Jimmy Rinks could have easily just stormed off the battlefield and I don't know, go to college and try slam poetry. Makes as much sense.
Cynthia! Jesus died for our Cynthias!
And they did the same with Kai. Oh, I'm so happy you're discovering yourself like a college girl exploring her sexuality while 23 billion people are dying. I'm so happy you're getting some, Jimmy, while 23 billion people are dying. Look, getting mad at him for having sex is just a meme at this point. The problem is that there is a human Covenant member to begin with. The Covenant wages a war of extermination because they view mankind's existence as a heresy. And they only keep a human around to activate Forerunner technology for them. If too much of the Covenant finds out, it threatens the entire structure and religion. As has happened exactly in Halo 2, especially when it comes to the Arbiter's character arc.
Go ahead, do your thing.
The sacred rings, what are they?
Weapons of last resort, built by the Forerunners to eliminate potential flood hosts, thereby rendering the parasite harmless.
And those who made the rings? What happened to the Forerunners?
After exhausting every other strategic option, my creators activated the rings. They and all additional sentient life in 3 radii of the Galactic Center died as planned. Would you like to see the relevant data?
I know what they tried to do. It all comes back to the first mistake. They need to fill enough episodes with drama that has nothing to do with Halo to justify the episode's existence. What they should have done instead is keep the Master Chief and all Spartan 2s as two-dimensional characters that act as a vector of change for our three-dimensional characters. If there was only a recent example of a larger-than-life two-dimensional character who forces all the three-dimensional characters to change and adapt, and the whole story became a massive hit with global audiences. Oh well. Any reflection on experienced trauma comes after the war. Funny enough, the company responsible for mishandling Halo the most understood this instinctively, but it took them 3 attempts until they learned how to do it. The Master Chief in Halo Infinite acts as a two-dimensional vector of change for both the weapon and the pilot. It's one of my favorite moments in the game.
Crushed. Broken. Beaten. Useless.
Enough.
When? When is it enough, Chief? When we're in there? Because that's where I belong. In there. With them! I'm worthless. You should leave me here with the rest of the carpets.
We all fail. We all make mistakes. It's what makes us human.
I'm sorry, Chief, but how have you ever failed?
I should have protected Cortana. Stopped everything from going wrong. I failed her. I will not fail you.
And they didn't need to take off the helmet. They didn't need to introduce unnecessary drama, no fancy camera work or staging. It's just 2 dudes talking in a first-person shooter, and it's better than anything the damn show has done. It worked because they put the 2 and the 3-dimensional character into the correct relation. And that's why most people cared about the pilot and nobody does about Kwan. And with that we have arrived at the most infuriating aspect of the show. The fact that Jimmy Rinks keeps taking off his helmet. I will give you reasons across the board why that is nonsense. From a screenwriting point, from a filmmaking and editing point, down to the lore and gameplay of the games. So let's quickly address some of the pro helmet off arguments. Number 1, he does it in the books. Did you know that he takes off the helmet in the games too?
Tell that to the Covenant. Has already begun.
You know what we don't see? His face! Because Bungie understood there is no face on Earth that could give this character justice. So they just don't show the face, as any Halo movie should. The main reason, of course, is that every player can see themselves in the Master Chief. So remember what we're doing, adapt the video game series Halo. In the books, characters also monologue, and we accompany them through their inner thoughts. That's the advantage of prose, and the advantage of film is that it's a visual medium, which gets us to number 2. You get emotional scenes with faces. No, you get emotional scenes with good screenwriting. Also, let me quickly address the real reason why Jimmy Rings keeps taking off his helmet. It's because Pablo's agent lobbied successfully for it. Because Pablo is using Halo as a platform to boost his career. Granted, that's every actor, but he picked the worst possible franchise for doing it. I don't want to see his mug anywhere else again because it's just a monument to his sins. And I already showed you how Halo Infinite managed to invoke emotions with good screenwriting. Godzilla -1 does the same, which gets us to editing. Do you know why both Dread and the first season of Mandalorian worked? Because of the Kuleshov effect, and it's one of the oldest and best editing techniques out there. The Kuleshov effect, like many things in the early days of filmmaking, was discovered by a Russian, Lev Kuleshov to be exact. And he realized that audiences derive more meaning from the interaction of 2 back-to-back shots than from one shot in isolation. If you show the same reaction shot followed by a different insert, people associate the sequence with different meanings and emotions. Alfred Hitchcock demonstrated this wonderfully as well, in his own way. And the most frustrating thing is when you combine the Kuleshov effect with good filmmaking, with good blocking, composition, lighting, and sound design. You get a much more potent effect than any of the supposed drama in the show. You do not even need to edit the shots. I'll show you why. Again with Halo Infinite, because it's exactly here that 343 finally cracked the code of what to do with the Chief.
The others, the Spartans. Did you?
I'll find them.
Echo 216, all channels. Can you hear me? I repeat, can you hear me?
How can I ever know what's going on in his head? None of the elements tell me enough. Not the slow camera, not the mood set with the lights, not the sound design.
Big guy, your motion tracker isn't moving. Come on, give me anything.
Chief,
Respond, please. Did you find the source of the signal? Whatever's down there either has to come with us or be left behind. Can you hear me?
His inner turmoil is just a mystery.
a dig site on the ring? This conservatory must be some sort of Forerunner installation. What do you suppose they're after?
It's time to go.
I can't even hate watch this show. It's like their main mission was to butcher every element that makes Halo, Halo. I mean, for crying out loud, they cucked the hyper agent in this show. You couldn't make it more anti-Halo if you deliberately tried. The only thing Hollywood keeps surprising me with is how some people can keep their jobs. I'm saying this as an indie screenwriter and as someone who has pitched his own shows and feature scripts. The worst thing to happen to Hollywood's creativity is the rise of the creative executive. It's the type of producer who thinks they know better what the audience wants than the audience themselves. And the creative in creative executive is the same as Patriot in Patriot Act. Frank Zappa had some thoughts on this type too.
Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives, you know, who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
The biggest mistake they made was to ignore the games, and it was a deliberate one. But you cannot adapt Halo without playing the games. You need to get the feel for Halo to properly translate it into a purely visual medium. There is a reason Halo spawned a genre of failed Halo clones or supposed Halo killers. Halo's gameplay was so unique and successful that a horde of developers failed to copy it. This is also why the show gets some elements right. It's like a paint job derived from reading summaries or lore entries. But they have no clue how all these elements are supposed to relate and play off each other. That's why Blomkamp understood, because he played the games. And that's why randomly selected YouTubers who played the games have a better understanding of what Halo is and where the show went wrong.
Master Chief's character has been completely and utterly assassinated by Paramount Plus and 343 Industries.
Half the season was taken up by a cringy, angsty teenager subplot that no one was interested in.
And they might come up with the excuse of, well, this is just a different timeline. This is the Silver timeline, alternate reality. It's not canon, different universe, blah, 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 whatever. You called him Master Chief, okay? This is your version of Master Chief.
You know, the funny thing about it is that they had people around to give guidance on Halo lore. 343 hires writers to do that, but they basically have these people there at the set of the TV show to tell the director the basics of Halo stories, just for them to respond, yeah, that's cool, now shut up, I'll do it my way.
About 10% of it has actually felt like it was based on Halo. And everything else is just shit that you could swap in any generic sci-fi universe, story, or plot, and it would be the exact same. Nothing about what makes Halo special and interesting is present in the show.
That's so unbelievably out of character for a Spartan 2. A Spartan 2 would not prioritize a personal vendetta over quite literally saving humanity from the Covenant.
Do the showrunners not understand the impact and legacy of Master Chief's face and what revealing it actually means? It's almost a joke how often he tries to not wear his armor.
The Master Chief was literally always intended as a faceless mute who only opens his mouth for wisecracking. It's a character for the player to project onto, but people want to make emotional stories. Therefore, Master Chief must be made into an emotional character who shows his face.
Especially since some fucking human is hanging out with them and like their whole mission is to exterminate every single human ever. It makes no goddamn sense.
It's like Halo is constantly being put in the hands of people who want to make anything but Halo.
And that's exactly what went on behind the scenes. It seems to be Hollywood's mantra for the past 5 years, if not more.
I have to be honest, I was not very steeped in the comics.
I didn't read any comics or do any research.
I wasn't familiar with comics. I wasn't familiar with the movies.
We didn't lean into a whole lot of the history of the comic books.
Yeah, candidly, we were not enormous comic fans.
I wasn't super into superhero comics when I was a kid. I read a lot of like indie press stuff.
First thing I was told is don't read the comics.
Really?
As a creator, they put you in a bubble. They don't let you talk about any of the other projects, right?
You know, they're up for anything.
We ultimately decided to redefine it for the series and thought that it worked better for the story that we're trying to tell.
Did you ever read you've never read the comic?
When the DVD comes out, I'm going to read a Thor comic book and just see where we went wrong.
These are the faces of writers who never had to build an audience. They got an audience handed to them, taking it for granted. But one should never take anything for granted. People thought the Soviet Union would never collapse, and now its most esteemed symbols and icons are added to a Funko Pop collection in some tanky's basement. As I said before, life can be funny. And looking at Hollywood's box office numbers, I'd say they'll find out soon enough that no audience can be taken for granted. Plenty of people have discussed every detail wrong with this show, so it's time to switch it up. And with the groundwork laid out, we can finally write Halo. It's time to finish the fight in one final effort. To write the Halo epic properly, we'll utilize free vehicles or templates. Well, we'll take elements from each and combine them into what we need. John Truby's designing principle from Anatomy of Story will help us capture the vast timeline and the 23 billion death toll. John York's Into the Woods is great for two-dimensional characters, and it will help us with the Master Chief. And finally, Save the Cat will tell us how to structure all the complexities so that most audiences can follow along. In particular, how to utilize all the lore and plot for the story beats in the script. We got our genre, and for the title I will stick with Halo Fall of Reach. The first novel is ground zero for the lore, and everything else falls in place from here. Next is page count. I would gun for 180 pages, so roughly a 3-hour epic. With the base parameters, you can start selecting your what, how, and why. Those are the premise, designing principle, and theme. Let's start with the what, the premise. As humanity faces galactic extermination by an alien religious hegemony, 2 soldiers must find and secure an ancient artifact on humanity's military nexus called Reach. The reason you should try and keep this down to 1 or 2 sentences is because it's the through line connecting everything. Next is the designing principle, our how. This is the basic action your hero will take through the course of the story. This is where the internal conflict and change should already shine through. 2 soldiers, one is an ODST raised on Harvest by insurrectionists, the other abducted by Oni into the Spartan 2 program designed to crush the insurrectionists. Must work together in a race against time as human military command is overwhelmed by alien forces. With this we should be able to replicate the very dynamic I explained earlier. I would create a completely new character just for the movie adaptation. This way we can create a dramatic arc with an emotional core, where the Master Chief stays as we know him, but acts as a vector of change. This interplay between Master Chief's stoic determination and a resilient outsider creates a dynamic and emotional journey, weaving together themes of sacrifice, camaraderie, and the high cost of war. Next we got theme, and boy is this a tricky one. On 2 fronts. A, we need to encapsulate everything. The vast timeline, all elements of the paleo-cosmic epic, all the factions and all the layers of conflict have to be reflected in one thematic through line. You can have multiple sub-themes played out through the course of the story, but we need one specific to tie it all together. And B, we need to avoid Ma allegory. I call it Ma allegory, but John Truby would just describe it as preachy or sanctimonious writing. It's when the allegory becomes the point of the story for a political gotcha. Truby defines theme as moral argument, so you have to write your theme as if you are on both sides of it and you let the characters duke it out. But this means that you must be able to write from both perspectives, and a lot of writers simply view the other as evil, whatever the other may be. The most infamous example of this is Alan Moore and Rorschach. Moore is a good writer and he gave Rorschach a proper dramatic arc, but he also projected everything he hates onto Rorschach. And he's wondering now why people like the character so much. Even though it should be obvious, because Moore gave him a classic full triumphant arc a la Rocky. Moore inserted a resilient fool, steadfast in his principles, into a sea of mass-murdering psychopaths. Yeah, it's such a mystery why people relate to him. Simplest example are 2 anti-war movies. Imagine 2 screenplays. One says war happens because of nationalism. The other says war happens because it's part of the human condition. Now which one is closer to the truth and more interesting? Because you can get rid of nation states and people will go to war for their tribe. You can get rid of tribes and people will go to war for their family in-group. You can get rid of humans altogether and chimpanzees will step in and go to war as they already do. That's how deep we need to go with our theme. And so what I came up with to tie everything together is the following. The society that separates its scholars from its warriors will have its thinking done by cowards and its fighting by fools. This should tie everything together. The UNSC utterly incapable of dealing with the Covenant, to Dr. Halsey's role and every grunt on the ground, as well as the Covenant side, in particular the role of the Arbiter and the Prophets. And yes, I am aware that this quote is often misattributed and misquoted, which is very ironic given the fact that this entire genre exists by accident. Might as well use an accidental quote as its theme. With this you got your what, how, and why. Now we can write the screenplay, and for our opening scene I'm gonna steal from the best, like Quentin Tarantino does. We are gonna rip off 2001 A Space Odyssey because it's the perfect way to capture vast temporal frames. I would open up with a herd of roaming woolly mammoths from 100,000 BCE. A group of cavemen tried to take one down, but they couldn't penetrate its hide with their primitive spears. One lonely caveman has been working on a new invention, a sturdier spear with a stone tip. We cut to the next scene and witness how a massive mammoth succumbs to its wounds, death by 1,000 cuts as the beast is pierced by countless spears. The caveman who invented the spear approaches the dying beast. We can see him reflected in a mammoth's eye, and with each blink, he comes in closer. He raises the weapon high, creating a long beat before the spear comes down. Blood splatters across the ground. As it seeps into the earth, it forms a title, Halo, Fall of Reach. A trail of plasma fire follows the title until it's thoroughly burned. The glass lens bursts into a black void, like a slipstream rupture, and a small vessel emerges from slipstream space. We basically pick up where Chapter 1 of the Fall of Reach novel begins, and the entire first act should be focused on the Spartan 2 program. Chief's induction is contrasted with a farm boy, let's call him Marcus, or any name will do actually, who grows up on Harvest, the First Contact world. Our farm boy is raised by insurrectionists, but after the glassing of Harvest, Marcus enlists with the UNSC. And as the first act progresses, as the Spartans grow, we see less and less of their faces. With each scene, they turn more into lethal ghosts that even their training leader, Franklin Mendez, is scared of. We break into the second act with the glassing of Harvest, and the entire build-up towards the midpoint, so our first half of the second act, is humanity's futile fight against the Covenant. It's one lost battle after another, and even after the Spartan 2s are deployed, even after winning the ground game, humanity's ultimate demise lies in orbit. Next we got the midpoint, and I gave this one a lot of thought. It needs to be vast and big as Halo, but completely tied to character. Hence why I would do a 10-year time skip right at the 90-page or 90-minute mark. What precipitates this time skip? Marcus is sent on leave, he is on Earth visiting what's left of his family. They live a sheltered life, ignorant of the losses and sacrifice in the war. Some members of his family even blame the UNSC for the war, which causes a falling out between them. This fallout leads to the time skip. We jump 10 years ahead, right on Reach. Here the second half plays out, both the second half of the second act and the entire third act. You combine elements from both the novel and the game to create this vector of change I described earlier. The 10-year time skip allows us to explore how both Marcus and the Chief have changed as everything comes together in one final effort on Planet Reach. Master Chief and Cortana's relationship has to be part of a few beats. The ringing of the bell in particular has to be in the movie. It's the first time John and Cortana work together on an insane obstacle course, and they manage to deflect a Scorpion missile because of how well this symbiosis is. By deflecting, I mean the Master Chief bitch slaps a missile. And this interplay needs to be part of the climax as well. This way you have a laser focus on the core elements from the games, instead of cramming everything at once into a first season, for example. This is the movie we should have gotten about 12 years ago. Like the novel, this movie would have set everything up and primed audiences for any sequels or spin-off shows. After this movie, you can explore the Halo rings and any political and cultural shenanigans within the UNSC and the Covenant. I am 100% convinced we'll see some of these elements in Season 2, because you can get some of them right by just, well, reading the lore or a synopsis, but never the totality of what makes Halo. And the entire thing is just soured for me because we are not dealing with the Master Chief, we are dealing with Master Cheeks. They wanted to have a three-dimensional character, which means they have to repeat this process. They need to give him a new character spine. So in any case, we either get more of the nonsense from Season 1, or they try to recreate this two-dimensional character, but it's not going to work because it's still Jimmy Rings inside the suit.
How does it feel to have lived long enough to see all of your favorite franchises go down in flames?
Feels great.
So, will we ever get a proper Halo adaptation on screen? I doubt it. Honestly, I'm not even sure Hollywood will survive this new age of entertainment. But who knows, crazier things have happened. In the meantime, let me know in the comments what you think of my assessment. Do you think Halo does exist within its own genre? If so, are there any elements I might have missed? And are there any other franchises that could fit into this genre? I'm happy to adapt the Paleo Cosmic Epic for more accuracy. In any case, remember kids, I only know one thing for sure. Life is suffering, but Cevapi helps you transcend it. Through heart disease.
What happened?
I'm not sure. When Halo fired, it shook itself to pieces. Did a number on the Ark. The portal couldn't sustain itself. We made it through just as it collapsed. Well, some of us made it. Truth and the Covenant, the Flood. It's finished.
It's finished.
I'll drop a beacon, but it'll be a while before anyone finds us. Years, even. I miss you.
Wake me when you need me.